We are back with another one. It is the Authority Project. I am Brian S. Arnold, your host, and I'm here with my new good friend, Andrea Fryrear. And she says that she is here to show you how to focus on less so you can accomplish more. Is that right, Andrea?
That is right. Counterintuitive, but very true.
Well, I am excited about this because I think this is going to be good for everybody to listen to. So here we go with the Authority Project. Hit the intro.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, feast your eyes and tune your ears. It's that time again. We are live with another episode of The Authority Project. It's the video podcast streamed on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Periscope, where we talk to digital marketers, business coaches, and creators of all kinds on how they've built authority in their field and how you can mimic their success. Developing authority, building your audience, and attracting better clients to your own business. Now, without further ado, let's bring to the virtual stage your host, Brian S. Arnold.
All right, I am here, the host, Brian S. Arnold here, and I am excited to have Andrea in the virtual building today, and we're talking about focusing on less and accomplishing more. Is that right, Andrea? How are you doing today?
I am really doing great. It's Friday afternoon, so, sliding into the weekend. It's a good place to be.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Love Fridays still. So let's start with, first of all, who is Andrea though? Who is Andrea personally and then professionally? Who is this person?
Professionally, I like to say that I'm just an Agile nerd. I think and talk and write about agility all day, every day. That can be personal agility, which is really how I built my business for the past 5 years now, or marketing agility, which is what me and my fellow Sherpas spend our time teaching marketers how to apply agile ways of working to their projects and teams and the efforts that they're putting out. I think that even carries over into the personal life. My kids, we have a Kanban board that is our chore chart and shows what needs to be done and who's going to do it. So I've drank the Kool-Aid and am fully immersed in agility all the time.
I love this because this is where I am pivoting to right now, going back into this kind of thing. So I am very excited about this topic. So before we start, let's dive into more of that because my next customary question is like, what is your daily routine? So that this must be a big thing for you. How does that work for you?
Totally. I'm an early riser. I always have been. These days it's 5:15. I get up. I have kind of the coffee ritual. Boil the water over the grounds and all that good stuff.
Nice.
I'll spend 45 minutes or so reading, journaling, really trying to get myself focused for the day. And now that my kids are back in school, hallelujah, I can actually fit a workout in the morning as well, before it's time to get them on the bus. So that's the usual start to the day. And I'm usually done and kind of on my first Zoom call by around 8 or 8:30 in the morning.
Great. Awesome. That is perfect. So let's dive into your topic today, which says that you should focus on less to accomplish more. What do we mean by that? What is the blueprint of that topic? How do we do that?
Yeah. So, it's all about prioritization and focused effort for me. And that goes for whether it's your individual to-dos or what your team is trying to accomplish. You have to first really understand the full scope. Like, what are you facing? What's the big giant list of all the things you could be doing? And then what you have to do to get beyond kind of the overwhelm of just seeing that giant wall of stuff kind of staring at you is to prioritize. And you have to get really ruthless in this process. So like, you can't have 3 top priorities. It's not a thing, right? You simply cannot focus on that much in any given moment. Humans suck at multitasking. We're just not good at it. And so if we can identify the one thing that would make the biggest difference to us right now and focus on that thing until it's done, then move on to the next thing. It is this like superpower that unlocks productivity in a way that just trying to do it all at once simply can't compete with.
So this is great because we're gonna talk about this. We're gonna talk about this. So are you not a fan of the word multitask?
I'm really not. No, I talk about context switching instead, because that's really what
Okay.
we're doing, right?
Okay.
Like, this is why you can't text and drive, because you really can't do both of those things. And you're going to text and not drive, and you're going to kill someone.
Right.
But our brains are doing one thing at a time. And if we try to force them to do multiple things, we're really context switching and jumping back and forth between those things. And every time you do that, your brain has to kind of like grind its gears, and it's hard for it to get to that next thing. So you lose effectiveness and you lose time moving back and forth between those things. So it's actually quite a bit more efficient to do one thing at a time. But it's so counterintuitive. Like, multitasking was such a badge of honor for a long time. And people would say, like, I'm a great multitasker, you should hire me. But really what we want are single taskers, like people that can focus on something really important until it's done.
Now, so I have so much things. I have so much things to tell you. ask you. We want to keep this to a half an hour, supposedly. So, what about the jobs that you get where essentially you are asked to do more than one thing? Maybe you're taking a phone call and you're writing on here, then you're trying to take notes while the person's talking, then you're doing this, that, and the other. Is that still constituted as doing one thing, or is there another thing that you can define that as being?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So yeah, like if you and I you were a potential client, right? And we were doing a discovery call, I could be talking to you and taking notes on what you say. I'm focused on the call. I'm doing kind of different activities that are centered around that, but that's the one thing. What I don't want to have happen is for me to try to be exploring your problem and understanding how I could help you, and my Slack messages are going over here on my other screen, right? And ding, 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 and my team is asking me for things, and I'm going to get distracted because you can't not look at it, right? If it's over there, you're gonna be pulled at it. And so then I've lost focus on you. And it took me a minute, right, to read the Slack and be like, what are we talking about? And then I've lost what you're saying, right? And I'm trying to come back. So that's that context switching problem. And what comes with it, which is hard as an entrepreneur, I think, is you have to not be available all the time. Like, if I'm here on a call with you, I should be 100% on this call with you. And there shouldn't be an expectation that my team is going to get a response from me in 30 seconds if they ping me on Slack. It shows me as unavailable. I don't have my email open on the other screen either. Like, you just have to isolate yourself from those other distractions. And we feel like we're going to miss something, or we're not going to be responsive enough. But ultimately, we'll be more responsive because you'll have focused time when it's like, this is email answering time for 45 minutes at the end of the day. And I actually will empty my inbox instead of trying to do it like part-time throughout the day and not really ever finishing any of them. And then I'm, 5 days and I haven't answered anyone's email. And then you're freaking out and you spend all weekend answering email.
I love this question. I love this where we're going with this, because I see like people who have their task, right? So whatever your strategy time is to say what you're gonna do for the week. You have your 1 or 2, 3 tasks that you definitely want to do this week, right? But then something else comes up and you're like, oh, I need to have this done too. So let me do this first, while I'm here, let me do this. And then like later on, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't do the 3 tasks that I wanted, because you're putting all these other things into your routine for that week. Can you explain how people can get over that obstacle of just like focusing on the topic at hand for their week?
Yeah, I mean, the Agile sort of trick for this is visualization, right? You have to have everything out where you can see it and document it in a way that can still be responsive and kind of, there's going to be times when you picked your 3 big rocks for the week, but something crucial comes up and you want to be able to respond to it. But if you can have you've got, what I'll tend to do is I have a huge list, right? It's dozens of things that I want to do. But then every week I sit down and I slice off a bit of that looking at my calendar and trying to be realistic to say, I have an hour here or 3 hours here or whatever. So therefore I can accomplish these things. But when things come up during the week, what I do is I compare them to all of those other things that I committed to, and I put it in the priority order where it belongs. And sometimes it doesn't make it at all, right? I want to keep an eye on it, but I put it into the big list to be prioritized later. It doesn't get done this week for whatever reason. Sometimes it's crucial and it goes to the very top, and it will bump everything else down, but I can see that happen, right? And I understand that I've put some of the stuff at the bottom at risk now by taking additional work on. But I have it all in Trello. It's a kind of project management tool that I love, love, love. And it's super easy to move and drag and drop things. And you can't have side-by-side priorities, right? It's a single list. And so you have to have one thing at the top and nothing else. So it really gets you into that discipline of, if something comes in, like, I need to compare it to everything else and decide if it's actually more important than those other things.
Great. So I'm going to now maybe introduce Agile more, because I don't think we ever really said we defined that in our conversation yet. So for people who don't know what that is, can you tell us what is Agile and what got you so on board with this methodology?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, Agile started out in software development in a lot of ways. That's where really the Scrum framework came from. Other aspects of agility were developed in manufacturing. Toyota popularized a lot of these things. But really the idea is, how do we identify the most important work and only do that and give it to our audience and get it out into the world, right? So you can think about Windows updates back in the day that used to take 18 months or 2 years to come out, and then they would release it and everyone hated it, right? So now we're hundreds of hours and millions of dollars into this big thing that we built and put out into the world, and nobody wanted it anymore. But Agile says, okay, how about I work for like 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and give you a little bit of what I think you want, and you tell me if that's actually what you want or not. And if it's not, cool, I'll stop doing that. And I've only put like 2 weeks into it. And it works beautifully in marketing as well, right? So we can give some digital content in a small, impactful way and see what our audience thinks, instead of the like once a quarter we spend millions of dollars on this massive campaign that we put out and we really hope everyone likes it. And we've all seen those ones that blow up in the team's faces, right? And they get horrible, bad press, and they just spend a quarter's worth of budget on this thing that everybody hates. So Agile is the consistent, regular delivery of value, as opposed to hanging on until you have something huge and perfect to show.
This is obviously great for organizations that are listening. But what about like the solopreneur, like the small business, where it's like, I can just see right now people, the usual thing, like I'll give myself an example, like, oh my God. I remember spending like 6 months building my website for something that I really used. After all that was said and done, I was glad that I accomplished it, but it was of none effect. So how do you deal with people who are like maybe just starting out and saying, like, what is their minimal thing that they should be putting out? To get some kind of feedback and then going from there.
Yeah, it's about kind of letting go of the idea of perfection in a lot of ways. There's this idea of a minimum viable product. So what's the smallest thing that you could put out that would still work? It's not terrible and it's not useless, right? We're not just trying to throw stuff out just to say that we're done. But my team at AgileSherpas, we fall into this trap too. We're all Agile trainers and we still get caught up in wanting to do like the perfect campaign and have everything beautifully done. But inevitably, we get more value when we just put something out and ask our audience what they think about it. Even what we've done before, here's a good example. We wanted to build a new course for marketing leaders because we kept hearing from teams like, well, this is great, but if my leader's not on board, it doesn't help me. And so we made a landing page and said, would you like to be notified if, this leadership course opens? Would you like to be one of the first people to get it? Because we thought there was something there. And we could have gone away and spent 3, 4, 6 months building that course, right? And slides and facilitator guides and exercises and the whole thing.
Right.
And then released it and ta-da, here's the thing. But maybe nobody actually wanted it. But we put out that landing page and we had like 60 registrants in a day. And so we were like, yes, for sure. Now we've validated and we'll happily go and spend the time to build a really good product. But we validated the idea first, right? We built that landing page in a week and collected the data that we wanted. So it doesn't mean that you never do the big thing, but you do it after you've kind of tested and learned around the idea first.
And so now the following question from that is, what if you don't have any place to get that data? What if you don't have an audience? What if you don't have any, an email list of people that are following you or have been customers? So where do you go from there? This is the balance, Andrea. This is the balance. And I've been struggling with this because you have marketers to say, like you said, don't make anything, see if they want it first and then make it. But then at the same time, depending on what you're doing, you have to have something in place, some kind of, like I said, some kind of skeleton of what you're doing, especially if you're trying to, pitch to an organization. They were like, well, yeah, we want to hear what you have to say. And you have nothing, nothing in place. So what is that balance then, as far as, getting that together as far as a business owner, whether that be organization or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of viable part of the minimum viable, right? So what's the minimum amount that it's still going to do what you need it to do? And, I spent a lot of time early on before I started AgileSherpas and for probably 2 years afterward of just doing the things that I thought were going to add value to my audience. I didn't have one. I mean, I had a small one, right? And we grew it over time, but you do have to lay the foundation and build up that addressable group who's interested in what you have to say and eventually, hopefully, what you have to sell as well.
Especially for software startups. I mean, you can have something. You can't go into a meeting with like, this is my dream and not have it in the show. So that's what I'm like,
But that's a great example, right? Is like, what do you need? What's viable to show the potential of your dream, right? Because it might be a website, or maybe you just need a single page, right? An interest page of some kind. And, maybe you have a brilliant idea, but it's a slide deck that will tell it for you. And it's maybe you can do that in 5 slides and really strong voiceover, and you don't need 100 slides or, beautiful research and all these things.
Right.
But it's about like finding that valuable bit inside of everything that you could do, right? Because we have all these brilliant ideas as entrepreneurs. I could do that and that and that and that and that and that. But which of them is actually going to be impactful? And that goes to the top of your backlog and your list, and then you work down.
Okay, so let's hone in more on this topic here about focusing less to accomplish more.
Yeah,
we have so many things in our heads, like you said, we have so many ideas, so many tasks. Sometimes you're looking like I got so much to do just on this one project, but I feel like I have 3 other projects I'm trying to do at the same time. Especially if you're like maybe solo or maybe just one or 2 partners, and you're like, oh my gosh, how do I do this? So how do you focus on less when you see so much, in front of you, that you can, that you have to get done, or you feel you have to get done?
Yeah. So that's the piece that we haven't touched on yet, right? We've kind of talked about the visualization. Here's all the work that I need to do, and I've prioritized it now. But the actual execution of that work is where the focus comes in, because in the Agile world, we call it a WIP limit, WIP, or work in progress limit.
Yeah.
So you put a hard ceiling on the number of things you can be doing simultaneously. And so that's partially like what we were talking about before in terms of the like, don't have Slack open while you're trying to have a call with someone and the brain goes back and forth. But it's also when you sit down to have actual kind of get stuff done time, right? So I've set aside this hour and a half to write a blog post today. So I don't do anything else until that blog post is done. That is one piece of work that's in progress, right?
Yeah.
And so I personally will not have more than 2 things active at any given moment. So my to-do list might have 6 or 7 things on it, but I won't do more than 2 at any given moment in time, right? So I have to write that blog post, and I'm writing, but I get writer's block and I'm not pleased with how it's going. So I deliberately decide to stop and then come and work on a slide deck over here instead, right? And I'm going to spend 20 minutes, like give my brain a break and work on this for a while. And then again, I'm going to deliberately stop and come back to the blog post. But now I have blog post and slides both in progress. So I can't start a third thing. I cannot go and answer my email until one of those things is done. So now I can only ever be doing 2 things at once. And that's really how you get through way more stuff in a day than you think you can, because I'm not now splitting my time amongst 5 or 7 things. Only 2 things get my time at any given moment. So that's where the focus really comes in.
This is great. I've been reading up on this recently. And so that focus time is critical, as long, and hear me out here, Andrea, as long as you want to do that. Because I was just learning, I forgot the author's name, but he really put this in my head. Like, if we're so excited about doing these other things, and we're trying to get back into this thing that we don't like it as much as those other things, even if it's just like on your phone. And I love doing that. I'm gonna scroll through Instagram, whatever we're gonna do. And I love doing that. And we come back here and it's like, oh, it's not the same excitement. Have you started to deal with those kind of things where it's like an overstimulation of this doesn't equate to the great, this thing which is not as fun?
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's spreadsheets. Like anything with spreadsheets, I don't want to do it. I don't like to do it. But for me, it's about also knowing yourself and your own like circadian rhythms, and when do you work well and when are you going to be low energy. If I try to open spreadsheets like right now at 2:30 in the afternoon, not happening. Like, it's just, we're done. I'll sit there and stare at it, for 30 minutes, and like slowly my hand is inching over toward my phone to try to distract myself. But if I do it first thing in the morning, I'm a morning person, my brain is fresh. And so I have to block that time though, right? So it's monthly numbers came in today. On Monday, I need an hour to sit down and really go through them and do it in the morning first thing and get it over with. Because that's again part of the prioritization and focus. So that should be at the top of my backlog for the day, so that it's the first thing that gets done. If I try to push it to the bottom and do it at the end of the day, it's not happening.
Yeah. I have one caveat to that works for me. And it's a simple app that I have, and it's Pomodoro. But
I love Pomodoro. Yeah.
It's a thing called the Forest app on here, and you like, whenever I hit that button to start something, I go. It doesn't matter what time of the day is. If I hit that button, I'm like, okay, I gotta work. But besides that, it's about hitting that button though. If I don't hit that button, nothing's happening. But like I love how you said, like, I think people have to know their time of day on the task that they want. And I do you agree with this though? Do you think there are times where maybe you're not at peak performance, but you can still do this task even though it's not in the morning time? I mean, what if it's not spreadsheets? Maybe it's something else, just like, okay, I can do that, and still be slightly distracted. Do you believe in that at all? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some things like that. I mean, I can answer email while I have a show on in the background. My husband cannot, right? If there's anything else going on, he just can't get there. But so yeah, again, knowing yourself, and like that makes it feel less onerous because I have like The Office is playing, so that makes it a fun time.
Right.
And I'm still managing to get some things done. I did that a lot more during the pandemic when I didn't have anyone to talk to.
But I think this could be a problem. I think just for people who are trying to really accomplish more, and they see it's hard for them to really hone in and focus on that one thing that is And you hear this all the time, like, focus on the money things, focus on the things that are, that is going to be life sustaining instead of busy work.
Yeah.
How do we get past that? We're trying to get, well, because I think when we do busy work, it takes us away from maybe that big thing that we kind of maybe are afraid of, or I think it's going to be like it's too much for us to do. How do we get past that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I'll make cards in my backlog for some of those busy work type things, right?
Okay.
Like, and give them their own time, like set aside time for them so that they don't creep in and distract from the other thing. So it's like, if that's not the work in progress item that I'm doing right now, I'm not doing it, right? It's not sneaking in and disrupting the rest of the day, because it gives you that dopamine hit, right? I finished this little tiny thing, even if it wasn't the thing that I actually should be devoting my time to.
Right.
But your example of hitting the button and then that makes you like go into hard work mode. You also you build up this habit in your brain that like, when I move that card into in progress, it's go time on that card, right? And I'm going to crank on it until it's done. And then I get to move it to done. And that's like, yeah, right. It's happy every single time. And then when my to-do list for the day keeps shrinking and I actually get it all finished, right? Then that's, again, you get that positive reinforcement and eventually it becomes a habit.
Great stuff. Great stuff. We can go on and on about this, I'm sure. This is my topic. So, but we're going to end it here. I got one last question for you. I ask this of all of my guests. It goes something like this. There are people who are watching now, listening later, and they want to know, maybe they have similar journeys as you, similar stories. They want to help people, I guess, maybe it's with Agile, maybe it's just regular productivity with their audience, with their clients. I think we all go through this kind of thing, time management and so forth. So can you tell them how they can become an authority in the space that you're in right now? I'll put you front and center.
I would say just show up for yourself, show up for your audience, make a commitment and keep it. And the ability to just execute consistently is lacking in so many spaces and from so many people that if you can be valuable consistently, there's very little that you can't accomplish.
Awesome. Great stuff. Please, Andrea, tell people where they can find you after the show or where you want them to go.
You can find tons more about agility, and we have like sample boards and all kinds of free stuff at AgileSherpas.com. Lots of stuff for download there. You can find more about me personally at AndreaFryrear.com. And the nice thing about having a weird last name is I'm easy to find pretty much everywhere on social media. I'm the only Andrea Fryrear out there. So connect with me on LinkedIn. If you have questions or issues about any of the stuff that we talked about, I'm like I said, a professional Agile nerd, and I'll talk about it all day, every day. Feel free to reach out.
Remember that name though. Make sure it's not Andrea Fryrear. It's totally different .com. So totally different .com. So remember Fryrear. And check out her stuff at AgileSherpas. Just great stuff. I love the Sherpa thing there you got going on there. Great stuff. So we are done for now. Maybe we bring you back because I have so much more to ask you. So we'll see what we can do about that. But anyways, people, as I always say, remember, build it, share it, and they will come. We'll see you next time. We're out of here.
And that's a wrap for this episode of The Authority Project. Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you like what you heard, we want to hear from you. Subscribe, rate, and give an honest review. Share and tell your friends so they can hear too. And for even more authority building tactics, be sure to sign up at theauthorityletter.com. Get free weekly content and ongoing digital product giveaways to help you on your entrepreneurial journey. We certainly hope you got a key takeaway or maybe an aha moment from today's broadcast. Just remember, it's your authority. Build it, share it, and they will come. Until next time.